Okay.
All right. Hello and welcome to everyone. This is the first session of Byzantine chant, learning the tones or modes. I would like to start by introducing Deacon Andrew. If you wouldn't mind, if you're able to start your video and lead us in an opening prayer, that would be awesome.
Looks like I can't get my video to work right now, but I'll go ahead and pray if you don't mind without it. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, both now and ever and into ages of ages. Amen. Father, we commit this time to you. Ask you for those that are leading, that you would give them wisdom and insight into how to bring us along with them. And we commit this evening to you and pray these things in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you, Deacon Andrew. We appreciate you leading us in prayer. As I mentioned, this is the first session of Byzantine chanting, learning the tones or modes. Tonight, Charlie March will be leading us in our discussion of tone 1. Just a couple quick things before we get started. I did email everyone a copy of the handout, but the handout is also attached in the chat. You should have received 2 emails from me. The first email, I apologize, was not the handout. Please disregard that. Please disregard that handout or that attachment, and also the handout is in that second email. Tonight is going to be a hybrid, and I'll let Charlie talk to you a little bit about that. It's going to be using some work that we did with our virtual SMI, something that we hope to do again in the future. So, you know, just a little plug for the virtual SMI. It turned out to be a pretty exciting event for all of us, and we'd love to have everybody participate in that again. I've had multiple people ask about this video. When will it be available? I should have it available on the Facebook group by Wednesday evening at some point. So look for it there. If you are not currently a member of our private Facebook group, I'll put the link in the chat so that you can link over to that and request to be a member, and then we'll accept you, and then you can have access to all of our information. And then the links for the recordings will also be available in our weekly email. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Charlie.
Okay, thanks, Chris. One thing, you mentioned that you attached something to the chat. I don't necessarily see that unless I'm not understanding.
If you scroll all the way to the very top of the chat, there should be a PDF attachment. If you guys don't see that, I can reattach it. Yeah. I did it before you came in, but I thought it would probably still show up.
Yeah, the only thing I'm seeing,
that.
Yeah, all I'm seeing is my first contribution to the chat.
Okay, I'll add that back in then.
Okay, well, welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us. Really exciting to have you here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Charlie Marge. I am the Sacred Music Coordinator for the Diocese of Worcester and New England. I'm also the Director of the Boston Byzantine Choir, and I'm the head chanter at St. Mary's Orthodox Church in Cambridge. What we're going to cover today in this overview of tone 1. Oh, sorry, I just because it's a beginner class, I hit the wrong thing there. So forgive me. Let me get to the correct window here so I know what I'm looking at here. Just to give you the overview. We're going to go over the diatonic scale, which is used for tone 1. We're going to talk about how tone 1 earmologic hymns work. We'll give a simple analysis of tone 1 earmologic patterns. Then we'll talk about tone 1 sticker arc hymns. And then we'll talk about tone 1 special melodies and discuss the ESUN for tone 1 as well. So that's what we have in store. I saw some people in the chat asking about time length. Most of our classes in this virtual SMI series that's been running this fall, with all different types of classes, every week on either Tuesdays or Wednesdays, have generally been about 2 hours. This was a 1 hour class that may turn out to be maybe an hour and 15 minutes with, depending on the questions you guys have. I'm really happy to have this be interactive, especially at the end when the content is done being presented. So with that, what I'd like to start with, to get all of you guys, used to participating with the chat, I'd like you guys to go to the chat right now and type in some of your favorite Tone 1 hymns. When you think of Tone 1, what hymn comes to mind? And make sure you put yourself on mute as well. Okay, good. We got one on the the resurrectional Troparion in Tone 1, while the stone was sealed by the Jews. Also, when thou, O Lord, was baptized, the Politikion from the Feast of Theophany. That's one of my favorites. Again, while the stone, good. This is the day of resurrection. That one, that would be the opening of the Paschal canon, which is in Tone 1. Got someone liking the great doxology in Tone 1, and one of my favorites as well. Troparion of the Holy Cross. O Lord, save thy people and bless thine inheritance. Good. Thou art the joy. We are going to cover that special melody in this class. Love that one. Right, a good word from for the feasts, the Polyleos for the feast of Theotokos. Another vote for O Lord, save thy people. And another vote for, everyone likes that resurrection Troparion in Tone 1. Okay, it's probably one of the first things people learn. So, okay, very good. Thank you for participating in that. Oh, we got someone who likes the Polyleos in Tone 1 as well. So now what I'd like you to do, since people certainly have Tone 1 hymns that come to mind, if you could now in the chat, type in, when you think of Tone 1, what adjective comes to mind in terms of the feeling or the sense or your experience of Tone 1? Triumphant. I like that. I like that. Yeah. Some people call Tone 1 the noble tone. Joy. Yep. Somber joy. Yeah, that's sort of balancing the fact that to us people here in the West, it has a minor sound, but yet it's joyful. It's one of those great paradoxes, of us getting to live in the West and chant Byzantine chant. Peaceful. Yeah. We have a late vote for The Angel Cried, another in terms of favorite hymns. That's from the Paschal canon. Majestic, yep. It definitely sounds like a minor key, but yet it's majestic. Magnificent and enthusiasm. These are all great adjectives. Love it, love it. And glory. I see. We had glory in there as well. Yeah, excellent. Thank you for participating in that. So what I'm going to do now, now that we've had that chance to express ourselves in terms of what things we think about when we think of Tone 1 and the feelings that we associate with Tone 1. Now we're going to cut to the video from the class and pick it up from there. This bar out of the way so I can see my screen. There we go. All right. So because it's a beginner class, and I'm sure we might have some people that were not here yesterday, I don't want to dive into the Byzantine solfege until I at least tell you what the Byzantine solfege is. Everyone probably if you're from North America, which all of you should be, would be familiar with The Sound of Music and the famous song "Do a deer, a female deer, re a drop of golden sun." Well, the do re mi is called solfege. It's a system of singing that we have in Western music that allows you to identify what note, and when you go between notes, essentially know what kind of interval you're singing between them. And so if you were to sing, say, a C major scale on solfege, it would be the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Well, we have equivalents with Greek note names in the Byzantine scale. So it's the same kind of concept. It's called paralegi. And the way we typically write Byzantine chant using Western notation, we're going to have ni be the C. So if you're familiar with solfege, think of this as we're going to write it in a fixed way, but the concept applies that you can sing it wherever it's comfortable, in your range. But you always see the do or the ni, as the C when we write it out. And so the equivalent there, if you were to sing a major scale using the Byzantine syllables, it would be like this. Ni pa vu ga vi ke zo ni. So why don't you sing that along with me? Ready? Ni pa vu ga vi ke zo ni. So I just want to cover that in case you weren't in my class yesterday. So now when we look at the scale that's used by tone 1, the name of the scale, as we refer to it in Byzantine, is the diatonic scale. And it's basically a scale that starts on that second note, on the pa. So if you look here, we had ni pa, so on the D. And as you know, when you start a scale on a different note, it's going to sound different. In this case, if you wanted to compare it to Western music, we start that scale on the C, it sounds to us like a major scale, right? But if we started on the D and go up like this, it sounds very different. And you can sing this along with, well, actually, listen the first time, and then we can sing it together the second time. So if we start with pa as our first note, it would be pa vu ga vi ke zo ni pa. Now that's not a scale that a lot of people would be, say, familiar with off the bat. It's not major, it's not minor, but it's close to minor. It's what's known as closest to what you would call a Dorian scale, because of having that B natural there. But what's interesting about this diatonic scale is that when you go through it to the top and come back down, the zo or the B actually gets flatted. So the way down it would be pa ni zo ke vi ga vu pa. So why don't you sing that together with me, and we'll do it in groups of 4 notes that we call tetrachords. Okay, so we're starting pa together with me. Oh, hold on. Let me give you my, you need my spotlight so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, ready? Pa vu ga vi ke zo ni pa, pa ni zo ke vi ga vu pa. So on the way down, it's what we would call the closest to what we would call like a D natural minor scale. And that's going to be the fundamental basis and tonality that we're working with here in this first mode of tone 1. And then when it goes below the scale, if it just goes down a few steps, you'll often see motifs in the music where it goes below the pa. It'll go pa di zo di pa. So again, the idea is if you're not going to go through it and all the way down, that B is or that zo is going to be natural. So just keep that in mind as we begin to examine this tone and how it works. In all of the Byzantine modes, there are introductory intonations that you'll hear head chanters doing, especially if you've got a bunch of chanters, and and the head chanter is trying to communicate what mode are we going into. For tone 1, whether it's a fast hymn or whether it's a slow hymn, it's the same introductory intonation, which is basically going down to ni and going ni pa pa, but we use these syllables in the official Pekingese that goes ananas, and that gets you basically rooted right on the fact that the basis of this mode is the pa, or the D. So then we have here, and oh good, I do see Jessica's here. Great, excellent. So you'll be hearing from Jessica in a little bit. Jessica, for the SMI a number of years ago, wrote little songs for each of the modes to help explain how they work and help people remember how they work. So one of the things that we have here is this little song, and using the scale based on the pa. I'm going to bring up my pa a little bit. Pa, na. I'll sing it first, and then I'll have you guys sing it with me. Tone 1 rises first to thee, and it finishes on pa. So all you together, muted, let's sing it along with me. Tone 1 rises first to thee, and it finishes on pa. So what did that just tell us? Well, if we go back to this scale, right? Tone 1 rises first to thee. There's the thee, right? The G. Tone 1 rises first to thee, and it finishes on pa. So that tells us something very basic about this mode. And if you think about some of your favorite tone 1 hymns, you'll notice that that's exactly what they do. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to sing one right now that you're very familiar with, okay? Okay, just move this up. I just have to move this thing. There we go. Which is the Resurrectional Troparion in tone 1. So let's all sing this together. If I do it, so that's your D. So we're going to start on the G. While the stone was sealed by the Jews, and the soldiers were guarding thy most pure body, thou didst arise on the third day, O Savior, granting life to the world, for which cause the heavenly powers cried aloud unto thee, O giver of life. Glory to thy resurrection, O Christ. Glory to thy kingdom. Glory to thy providence. O thou who alone art the lover of mankind. So this hymn that should be familiar to all of you, if you notice, and we just very quickly look at it. The first cadence here, the first place it stops is on thee, on the G here, okay? And then the next phrase, it's also landing on the G here, and it's landing on the G here again. So you know this hymn, but you probably never noticed this, right? And then this phrase, ending with the comma, ends with you landing back down on pa, or the D, okay? And so if we're hearing that, thou didst arise on the third day, O Savior, so on the G, granting life to the world. And then what do? We go back to land on the G again. For which cause the heavenly powers, right, cried aloud unto thee, O giver of life. So this is, the mode is a lot more complex than this, but this is a simple way in your ear, and that's why we do this, to know that when you're starting in this mode, you're aiming, that the melody is always aiming to pause on that G, on that V. So when you look back at our little song that we had here before, this makes a little more sense. Tone one rises first to the, and it finishes on pa. All right. So the way I like to explain these things, and if you were in my class yesterday, I apologize, but we've probably got some new people here, is I like to compare it to taking a ride in an airplane, okay, where first you need to take off, okay, and then you need to be at cruising altitude, and then you need to land, okay? And so what I've done here is I've taken a verse from Psalm 140, 141 of the Vesper service, and showed some examples of different ways that you could take off, from the D and land on the G with this phrase, I cried unto the Lord with my voice, sorry, I went too fast there. With my voice unto the Lord did I make my supplication. So what we've done here is we've created a couple of examples for different phrases. So, for example, I cried unto the Lord with my voice. There's different ways that you can here land on the G. I've got two examples here. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and one of the things you'll notice is that the composition here is designed to emphasize syllables as you speak it. I cried unto the Lord with my voice. So I cried unto the Lord with my voice, or I cried unto the Lord with my voice. Or sometimes you can take a run going down and then end up back here on the pa, on the D. I cried unto the Lord with my voice. And then in the middle, usually, again, going back to the diagram, sorry I'm jumping around here, but once you've landed somewhere, then again, you're looking to be able to land on that G and then finish it up on the D. So in the middle here, we have a couple of different ways of doing that. With my voice unto the Lord, or with my voice unto the Lord. And to finish it, I've got three examples here. Did I make my supplication? Did I make my supplication? Did I make my supplication? So what we're going to do now is I'm going to have you guys use the chat window, which I can't see right now, so I'm going to rely on Chris to tell me what people propose here. But I'd like you to pick one of A, B, or C to start, one of A or B in the middle, and one of A, B, or C to finish. I'm going to show you how this one phrase can be constructed different ways using tone one in Byzantine chant.
Hey, Charlie, clearly somebody has been in your classes before, because before you even said it, they said BBA.
Okay, so BBA. So what I'm going to have to do is make this a little bit smaller so I don't have the problem I had yesterday where I couldn't see it all at once. Okay, so BBA. Okay, excellent. I cried unto the Lord with my voice unto the Lord did I make my supplication. See how that all fits together nicely? Let's hear another one, Chris.
How about CBC?
Okay, so I need to be able to see the second C. Okay, C, B, C.
Yes.
I cried unto the Lord with my voice unto the Lord did I, sorry, let me try again. I cried unto the Lord with my voice unto the Lord did I make my supplication. Yeah, that, because of the jump between here and here, probably someone wouldn't necessarily compose it that way, but it's still technically correct, from a Byzantine perspective. And do we have one more that's anyone suggested, Chris?
I have a BBC, which is similar to what you've done, but that's okay.
That's very similar to what I've done already.
How about an AAA, just for me?
Someone wants an AAA, okay. I cried unto the Lord with my voice unto the Lord did I make my supplication. All right, so hopefully you get to see how this works. As long as each of the phrases is constructed properly in tone one, the composition is really connecting these phrases together, and there's different ways that can be done, different solutions. There's also lots of ways that it would be totally incorrect to do it, okay? And if you attended our composers forum yesterday, you'll have a much deeper appreciation to what our composers think about when they're trying to set text to the modes in an appropriate way. All right, good. Yeah, and at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jessica Suki-Pilalis, who's going to go into a little more detail about what's behind the construction of the Byzantine modes, in particular, the construction of this modes and how syllables align. And the reason I thought it was worth doing a little more detail in this class, especially if this is a beginning class, I think the concept's really important for our beginners to know, that you just can't make up stuff and say it's tone one, that there are rules behind this, and I think it's actually fascinating. The first time I was exposed to this, I was like, oh, okay, you know, like there's some stuff I knew intuitively for chanting a long time, but I'd never heard it articulated before, and it gives me a great pleasure to turn this over to Jessica, who's going to be teaching the next class anyway, but go ahead, Jessica.
Right, so what we're looking at, first of all, are basics that run across all of the different types of tone one that are out there. Well, maybe not all of them, but the majority of the types that you will want to do it as you are starting to chant in mode one. So basically, what we have here are some common themes. And so while this is not an inclusive list by any means, we have a few settings here. Is this what you'd like me to do right now, the examples on the melodic formula, Charlie? We didn't get a chance to talk ahead of time, so is this where you'd like to go? You're muted. Unmute.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I know we're getting feedback from hearing you into here. Yeah, no, I thought what would be nice to do, especially the stuff at the bottom of the page here, is just explain how accents align and why they align, and then in the next 2 pages we have some examples of that you created.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't able to print out what you sent. It's still in the buffer.
Okay.
They just printed up. So you're going to have to guide me as far as how to help today.
Yeah.
So when we are looking at these different formulas, these are, as I say, these are just a few, and they are fairly universal formulas. So we can't see the very top of the page.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I was trying to focus on the bottom here, but
okay.
Now you can do it.
Wherever you'd like. So when we have some of these, though the tomb was sealed by a stone. So basically we have sealed when the tomb was sealed by a stone. So basically in this little formula, that G, that the, which is our secondary pitch in the mode, ha, D is our primary pitch, is being hit on each one of those. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but in this case, this is the beginning of the hymn. So in this particular setting of this hymn, we are establishing the mode very clearly, and by reiterating the secondary pitch of that mode very clearly with the accents. So, though the tomb was sealed by a stone, though the tomb was sealed by a stone. So that's the way these formulas basically are generated. They bring out those text accents. So if I were to look at this, I see that I have an accent at the very end. I have an accent on the 5th note ahead of that, sealed, and 2 notes ahead of that. So I'm looking at it in that perspective. So then we've got, by bearing your, it's hard for me to read the screen, by bearing your creator. So now, again, bearing your creator. So now it's a penultimate accent. Thank you for being the pointer, Charlie. So we've got creator, and this sort of is a very standard cadence for something that has a penultimate accent on the. So again, we're rising to the bearing your creator. There are other formulas that could substitute very well. But again, I'm picking some very basic ones. When we go down to the next line, we still have a penultimate cadence here. Third day, you arose, O Savior, on the third day. So now we have more space between Savior and third day, and you can see how the formula is stretching to accommodate that. Notice that most of these are fairly linear. The jumps tend to be mostly between more prominent notes of the mode, in this case, the, pa, which is your main structural pitch, and the, which is your secondary structural pitch in this mode. So we have that happening as we go. And I don't know why there is Greek on the next line. I do apologize. Was that what you sent back to me or something? Anyway, so sorry, it's in Greek.
Yeah, no, that was just on your page, but you can skip ahead to the next line.
We can still make it work. So we've got an anti-penultimate accent. Kyria. It could have been Jessica. It almost could have been Charlie March, because sometimes when you have an anti-penultimate and an ultimate, you can use the same formula. So here we've got Aniyasimas. So I put in this, I must have been working with a Greek group at that point. So I have the capital letters where the accent in the Greek word goes. So Aniyasimas. So again, you see this formula kind of stretching there, but the cadence now is Kyria. So we've got a penultimate, anti-penultimate accent. So going down one, I've evidently nestled these a little bit more. Accent at the end, here at the end, all things come to an end. I must have had a good time that day. So we have three ultimately accented these in this. And so basically, you can see that working back from that cadence, you can see how I've accommodated, and how the mode does, I haven't accommodated, how the mode, how its formulas are accenting different accents ahead of this final ultimate accent. So again, this one that I just did, all things come to an end. Again, that is an ultimate accent. So if we go down another line, we've got, he is holy. So again, that goes back to the before. Sorry, Charlie, if I had a little more time, I would have redone this whole thing for you.
Yeah, no, this is, I just wanted to give people, let me turn off the air conditioner.
Sure.
I just want to give people a little bit of a sense of how modes work. That it's not an accident that these notes follow certain patterns and accent certain notes. Because the important concept that I'd like people to understand is that the way that Byzantine chant brings the text to life is through these modal structures that put the accents in the right place. And so if something is well composed, it's just such a joy to sing, you know, and it really helps you pray the text, and that's what this is all about. And so it's an intricate system about how these things, like you said, can expand and contract to accommodate the number of syllables and where the accents are. So that's perfect, Jessica. That's really what I wanted to be able to convey to the group here, and just people can look on their own at the next 2 pages where you have examples here, and just explain ultimate or ultimato means accent on the last note.
Well, that's a typo. It's ultimate.
Ultimate, okay. Well, we use a lot of Italian in music. Someone said that earlier in the SMI. Penultimate means next to the last, okay? And then anti-penultimate is the one before the penultimate, right? So these are just some examples here of some formulas where you're ending on the V, on the G, and some where you're ending on the Pa, where the accent is either the final accent is on there, or it's on the second one, or it's on the one before that. So you guys can look at that, on your own. But thank you for sharing that, Jessica. Don't go away, because as an example of something that's composed with this in mind and related to our theme of the Nativity for this SMI, I'd like Jessica to sing a little bit of her composition here of the first ode. Someone mentioned one of their favorites was the Christmas canon. Well, here's the one that Jessica wrote, just to sing a couple of these troparia.
Charlie, you didn't tell me I had to sing. Okay.
I didn't think you'd object, but I can sing it if you don't want to sing it.
So, how far do you want me to go on this?
At the end of this first, the Irmos.
Okay. Do you have the new one?
This is the one you sent me.
Sorry. Okay. It's much harder to chant from staff notation. Christ is born, give glory. Christ comes from heaven, go to meet him. Christ is upon earth, be exalted. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. And all you people raise the hymn with joy, for he has been glorified.
And so thank you. And so I think one of the things you just hear there is how all those accented words fell in the right place, and it just flowed right together. And you've got the rest of her first ode of the canon here. Beautiful. Thank you, Jessica. Good. Here's someone mentioned. I don't know if anyone mentioned this one. Someone mentioned the Politikian for Lazarus Saturday. Here's one for Theophany by Bishop Basil that I think a lot of people are familiar with. I've included that in the packet as well. This is the one from my church. Only reason this is in here is because this was actually this was written back in I want to say it was like 1978. It was way before my time. 75, way before my time. Before that, our choir chanted all in Arabic, and so back then we didn't have these composers around, right? So someone said we want to be able to sing our Festal Troparion in English. So this was an example of something that was created. Those of you who know, George Duval, he's been very active in visiting music, but this is when he was a seminarian at Holy Cross. He wrote this for our parish. So, and as people mentioned, there's all sorts of hymns that they're familiar with in Tone 1. I'd like to move on and talk about the Tone 1 sticker arc, again, using a hymn that people would be familiar with. This is probably the first sticker arc hymn that most people would sing, other than maybe Christ is Risen. Someone needs to speak themselves. Chris, can you mute that person, please? Thank you. Okay. All right. Why don't you mute yourself, and for those of you who are chanters who do chant this at Vespers, why don't we just sing a little bit of this together? You'll notice it still uses the same scale. It goes below Pa, and goes down to the Zo here. Remember we said on the first page where we could go D, C, B natural, C, D. So let's sing a little of this together. And sticker arc, for those who weren't in my class yesterday, Irmologic is basically one note per syllable, like these hymns that we were singing before. Here we've got more than one note per syllable, okay? Oh Lord, I have cried out unto thee. thee, hear thou me. Give ear to the voice of my supplication. So this, for anyone who sings Vespers, this should be familiar to you. You'll notice here we have more than one note per syllable. You'll also notice that the resting points can be a little bit different when we're talking about sticker arc tone 1. We're not going to get into analysis of sticker arc tone 1 at all, but I just wanted to point out, again, because it's a beginner class and we're introducing you to this mode, it works differently when you're in the, say, faster earmologic style versus when you're in the slower sticker arc style. But it's still using, both of them are still relying on this scale that we showed you from the very beginning. Okay, the one that, you know, for all intents and purposes, if you're familiar with Western music, it sounds more like, you know, like a minor type, you know, scale, you know, with that minor third there. So, all right. Chris, have we had any questions that have come up in the comments at this point?
We've had several comments, but nothing that needed to come up to the,
Okay.
You know, that you need to talk about.
Okay, and then I'd like to show you an example of a sticker arc hymn from Christmas. That's one of my favorites, and I actually have a recording I can share so you can also hear how the ESON notes, which are indicated by these notes up here, work together with the mode to kind of establish that. You can only hear so much listening to somebody you know, chanting the melody. So let's see, I need to, in order for me to see this, I need to go up here. All right, and so just to give you a little idea of what the sticker arc style sounds like when you've got both parts there, and again, this beautiful hymn from the Christmas services. Really, it tells, you know, the stories all here about what's happening at Christmas. You know, the cave, the manger, the shepherds, the magi, Bethlehem. It's, you know, it's all here, but the composition is designed to really emphasize those things. So that's why I include this example here, so you could have something Christmas related in sticker arc tone 1. Next, here's an example of I would say one of the what's the word I'm looking for? Special melodies. There's a number of special melodies in tone one. A lot of popular ones, and then there's a lot of hymns that are based on some of these special melodies. One of the special melodies actually is that first hymn that we sang together, While the Stone Was Sealed by the Jews. That's actually a special melody, though the version we have doesn't say exactly fit one of the more common melodies. When Kazan wrote it, he took some liberties there. But one of the things that's characteristic about that first one that we sang, okay, if I can go back to that, is at the very end of it, you have the three glories, okay? Whoop, went the wrong way. Glory to thy resurrection, glory to thy kingdom, glory to thy prophets. And their special melodies are melodies that became so popular that the hymnographers of the church decided when they wrote texts for new saints and things like that, that they would set them to these same melodies and write the text so that you had the three, in this case, for certain saints and occasions, you would put those three glories at the end of what you were writing as well. So it would work that way. And we have an example of that here for our beloved Saint Raphael of Brooklyn. There's a couple of different apologetica out there for him. We have the Antiochian one in tone 3, but this is the one that the OCA commissioned for his canonization. And I have a recording of this one. This is short, and you'll hear the three glories at the end. So just bear with me a second here while I bring that up. And this, by the way, that last group, that was from a diocesan Christmas concert that we had up here in New England in 2012, and I asked Deacon John to organize a visiting choir for that. So that was what that previous one was. This next one was sung by our own youth, the YMM program that recorded back in 2016 this hymn of Dr. Jessica's. So here we go.
Your proclamation has gone forth throughout North America, calling the scattered sheep into the unity of the church. Hearing your voice, they responded to your teaching, and through your writings you instructed them in piety. Now guided by your example of Father Raphael, we sing hymns of praise unto Christ our God. Glory to him who gave you strength, glory to him who granted you a crown, glory to him who through you grants healing to all.
Okay, so you see the three glories there at the end. Another special melody, one that's near and dear to my heart, is the one that's called O Marvelous Wonder. There's actually two of them. There's one in tone 1, there's one in tone 8. This is one from our feast day of Dormition. All these special melodies have some original melody they come from. So this one comes from the feast of Dormition. And one of the things that's kind of neat about this one, when you hear this, oh, marvelous wonder, and the hymn starting out like that, and you hear it with other words, because of this association with the Theotokos, it turns out this special melody actually is used for other feasts of the Theotokos. So one of the ways these special melodies are supposed to work is it brings back memory of something else, right? I know it's used for some of the hymns on September 8th for the Nativity of the Theotokos. It's also going to be used coming up in the next week for the Dormition of her mother Anna. So it just some neat stuff about special melodies. So this is one that comes up a lot, usually in the context of Theotokos. And then this one is Christmas. I picked one that was Christmas related here. Thou art the joy comes up a lot. Let us all honor the forefather of the Most High God, even the great King David, for from him there is come forth. And really wonderful to say, very joyful. We had a couple people say joyful in the chat before. This is called Thou Art the Joy, and I don't know if either Deacon John or Jessica know what feast the original melody is from on that one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this one we see it a lot, and so my goal here is to make sure you're aware that there are these special melodies that come up often in Tone 1, and Tone 1 has a bunch of them. And then here's another one, All Lauded Martyrs. I'm going to play you a recording of that at the very end of the class that you can listen to as you're leaving. This is text for December 27th, so we're in the week after Christmas, and there's a wonderful story told here. I'll talk about this in a little bit. But those are some of the really big special melodies we see in Tone 1. There's also another one that comes up a lot that really confuses people, and I'm going to give a little bit of explanation to what that is, where it comes up, and just a little bit of why it might be so different than the others. And that's this one. That's called the Soldier's Standing Guard. And if you haven't heard this one before, it sounds like this. The soldier standing guard at thy tomb, O my Savior, became as dead on seeing the lightning like angel, who preached to the women of thine arising, O holy Lord. Thee we glorify, who hast abolished corruption. Thee do we adore, who from the grave hast arisen, and who alone art our God. In the chat windows, anybody know where that comes from? Anyone heard that?
The Lamentation.
Oh, someone said something. I was asking for the chat window, but yes.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's correct. It comes from the whoever that was. It comes from the Lamentation service. That's right. In fact, and there's other hymns in that service that are to this melody. Now, when you hear this melody, it doesn't sound like anything we've been singing up to this point in class, right? In fact, it sounds more like what we would call tone 2, or it sounds like it's using more of what's called the soft chromatic scale. So this is one of those things where in the past, people would say, well, why is this called first mode? Why is it called tone 1 if it sounds like tone 2? And my standard answer used to be, well, like in other things in Orthodoxy, it's just a mystery, But Deacon John did a little research for me this week, and without getting really complicated here, what I will say about this is that tone 1 used to be a little different in the past versus the way it is now. There was an older version of tone 1 that was actually based not on the D, but actually it was based on the A. So instead of being on the Pa, it was on the K, and it kind of looked more like this. Let me show you an example of the same type of hymn, but based on an A. This is just the same melody. When Joseph asked thy worshipful body from Pilate. So it was based on A, kind of like the tone 5 etymologic we covered yesterday. It was based on A, and what happened, in this melody is that people started singing it because of laws of attraction, people started seeing it a little bit more like what we would think of, as tone 2. I'm not going to get into all the details of what changed and what didn't change, but what I will say, and if you attended Deacon John's class on Friday, the advanced class where he talked about the concept of modulation and thora, meaning corruption, that actually what happened, that this was actually a true corruption of the melody, where it originally sounded more like a version of tone 1 based on a higher tetrachord, and we ended up with this thing that sounds more like tone 2, so they just kind of made it official. So we're just going to say it's soft chromatic, it's tone 2. And so we have this thing still called tone 1, but it doesn't really sound like tone 1. So that's a really short explanation about that. But what is important to know, about this melody is that it does come up in the first kathismata hymns. So in that part of Orthros, we have the kathismata. That's exactly where I got this music here. It's called first mode, but the way it's executed today doesn't sound anything like a mode 1 today, or even the mode 1 of the past. It got kind of corrupted along the way. So I'm going to pause and ask Chris, since we just have a few minutes left, are there any questions that people have been putting in the chat for you?
No, I think the chat's pretty well taken care of.
Okay, great. What I'll do then is I will share with you, I'll go back to this other, there's one other thing I'm going to say here, just about music. Because I promised to say something about ESON. The main ESON note for this mode is D, and if you want, you can stay on the Pa for the entire hymn. In fact, we have this Thou Art the Joy melody. Here's a version of it where we say we're going to start on the Pa, and we're never going to change throughout the whole thing, okay? And that would be the most traditional, most conservative form of an ESON. There are other notes that would be considered very traditional, like going up to the or the G. There are also variations that move around a little bit more, that would be more on the edges of the fray, where you'll see it go maybe down to a C to cadence, or up to an F for a little bit or whatever. But we've got examples here of both, just so you can see there's different ways. The same hymn could be sung different ways based on the ESON. The main thing is, if you're singing in a Byzantine choir, it's got to be really clear from the director exactly what he's asking you to do in terms of what note to sing, what syllable to use when you're chanting the ESON and all that. This is not an ESON class, we're not going to go there, but I just want to explain, you're going to see different examples here, and different ESONs could be applied to these different examples. So what I'd like to end with is these ones here. And again, focusing on our Christmas theme, I'd like you walking out of here thinking about Christmas. This text I absolutely love. Okay, just reading it, gives me goosebumps, Beholding her maker in her arms. So this is the Theotokos. This is the week after Christmas. Okay, Christ has already been born. Beholding her maker in her arms, as she held him, the all-pure one cried aloud, "Oh, my sweetest child, how is it that I now see thee as an infant? And I cannot comprehend thy boundless condescension. But now I sing the praises of thy might, and I worship thy great tender love, whereby thou art come to us to save the world." And then it goes on, and now Christ says something. And when we discovered this hymn, I was just blown away. Beholding me resting in thine arms, now he's talking to Theotokos, as an infant, O my mother, be exceedingly glad, for I am come that I may save all the world from ruin. Yea, and Adam, who I formed, who by the serpent's wickedest counsel reached and tasted of the tree, and from that the light of paradise then was cast out and became corruptible. And then it ends with the Theotokos responding, "Beyond all perfection as thou art, yet I see thee as a babe laid in a manger, and cannot glimpse this mystery's untold depths. How that after childbirth I remain inviolate, surpassing thus the laws of my nature, How then shall I sing thy praise, and what glory shall I offer thee? Thus the virgin maiden spake with wonderment. So now you've experienced this text just from the text itself, and then as you're leaving class, and you're welcome to leave at any point now, but we're just going to play a few minutes here of these three hymns, so you can hear how the special melody here in tone one takes that text and really lifts it up.
You're muted.
Muted, yes, I just figured that out. So let me say it again. Before we go ahead and play the rest of the recording so you can hear the text brought to life, if you haven't discovered the chat box yet, there's your opportunity to go ask some questions, and then we'll basically take those questions after we play through here. So that's the plan. We'll spend a few more minutes answering your questions at the end here. So go ahead and do that, and I'm going to go back to sharing the recording. So let me get that going for you right now.
Beholding her Maker in her arms, as she knelt in the altar, one cried aloud, "Oh, my sweetest child, how is it that I now see thee as an infant, and I cannot comprehend thy boundless condescension? But now I sing the praises of thy might, and I worship thy great tender love, whereby thou art come to us to save the world. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand, until I make thine enemies the footstool of thy feet. Beholding me resting in thine arms, as an infant, O my mother, be exceedingly glad, for I am come that I may save all the world from ruin, yea, and Adam whom I formed, who by the serpent's wickedest counsel reached and tasted of the tree, and from that tree like a passed out and became corruptible. From the womb before the morning star have I begotten thee. Beyond all perfection as thou art, yet I see thee as a babe laid in a manger, and cannot glimpse its mysteries until death's. How that after childbirth I remain inviolate, surpassing those the laws of my nature. How then shall I sing thy praise, and what glory shall I offer thee? Thus the virgin maiden spake with wonderment.
Okay, now we can go to the question and answer portion here. Okay, let me read these questions as they're coming in. Okay, there's a question about differences in scale, say in the Byzantine theoretical scales versus the Western theoretical scales. One of the reasons I didn't cover that in this class is I consider that to be an advanced topic. There's so many things that we want to get right in chanting that minor differences in the scales are usually something we don't cover. But in the true Byzantine scale, according to the theory, if you listen to a recording, say from Greece or Lebanon, you'll notice that the second note of the scale, pa vu, that the vu will be slightly lowered, and that the zo will be slightly, the zo or the b will be slightly different. The point of what I want you guys to get out of this is, and for this whole series of classes that we're eventually going to have, is to know the difference between this scale and what it generally sounds like, and what you experience from that tone versus a different mode. I want people to be able to hear a hymn and say, I know what mode that is. That's first mode. Okay. So that would be, I would say, a more advanced class to sort of get into what we would call, say, microtones. Right now, the issue that we have in many of our churches is someone can't even get into tone 1, which is, for lack of a better word, a minor sounding tone versus, say, tone 3, which is based more on a major type scale. Let's see. I'm sure we must have more questions out there. Let's see. Anybody else want to submit one? There was a question. Someone asked. The last recording, that was the Boston Byzantine Choir's recording, 12 days, which covers the period from Christmas until Theophany. So as we pointed out when we were reading that hymn, it talks about Jesus already been born, and this wonderful hymn about Mary looking down at Jesus and talking to him, and Jesus looking back at Mary and talking to her. All right. I guess if there aren't any more questions, I want to thank you all for coming and participating. Really wonderful to see all the enthusiasm around learning the basics about tone 1. I hope this is helpful, and certainly feel free. You've got my email on the cover page. Certainly feel free to reach out to me if you've got further questions. And in 4 weeks from tonight, the whole point of doing tone 1 this week, why? Is because right? So in 4 weeks, we're going to cover the tone 5 classes that I did in the summer. Each of those was an hour, so that'll be more like a 2-hour block that we'll have for that 4 weeks from tonight. And of course, as I said, every single week, we have a different type of class. We have classes on Western music theory. We've got classes on understanding the structure of the services. So important that people understand what hymn comes next. It's great to understand how the tone works. It's also great to know how Orthros works. So we've got that coming up in the month of October as well in 2 parts. So definitely check out the whole list of classes that's there. There's a lot you can learn from all different angles. I'm going to ask Chris if he has anything that he wants to say as we close up here.
No, obviously, first of all, thank you, Charlie. We always appreciate you giving us these classes on the tones. We do really appreciate it. So thank you for doing a great job with us. As Charlie was saying, we do have classes pretty much every week. Next week, we do start in with our Matins class, or Orthros, however you want to call it. That'll be next week, and then 2 weeks after that. And in between those, we will have pitching from the priest, which will be helpful for people who are either choral-minded people, people who also have a background in chant, just knowing based on where the priest is, where do you come in as a chanter? If they're too high for you, maybe you come in a fifth lower. So there'll be some of that information that'll be provided in that class as well. We do try to make sure that all of these classes that are recorded will be available to you on the Facebook group. Again, if you're not on the Facebook group, go ahead and request to join. At the beginning of the class, I put that into the chat. And we also are sending around emails each week. So, just make use of us. We really appreciate everybody really buying into this program. COVID has made a lot of bad things happen in our world, but in our department, it's actually made something really good happen. And so we just really appreciate everybody buying in and participating with us. And we hope that we can continue to give you, what you're looking for. So thank you, guys.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Chris.
Be safe out there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Marina.
Hey, Charlie, hold on, okay?
I will. I'm not going anywhere.
Good to see you, Ya Khalil.
Thank you. Thank you, Deacon George.
Alamak.
Thank you. Alamaka.
Thank you.
So, Charlie,
Hold on. Chris needs.
Okay.
You can probably dismiss people, right, Chris?
I can. Sure.
We have four stragglers.
Yeah. And I don't want them to feel like they're being thrown out, but on the other hand,
well, some people think about it, fact that it's probably going until 7, so they're just logging in and doing stuff, because it's a 2-hour class.
Right.
All those blocks.
There we go.
Okay.
So good to see you guys. Since you learned.
Yeah,
You learned
that was interesting. That was very interesting.
Good. I learned something too. Now I can change my materials to call it melodic minor,
Yeah, because melodic minor. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, te, le, so, fa, mi, re, do.
Oh,
So
well,
maybe slightly different.
No, it isn't. No, that because it's not T, it's te.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. So it's not quite melodic minor, but
No.
almost.
No, that's why it's hybrid of kind of like Dorian on the way up. And
Yeah, and I don't know my modes. I just don't. I was terrible at modes. So the virtual choir thing, it's gone out, as you all know, and I haven't talked to sorry, I can't think of his name. Jason, to see how many people have turned stuff in. Some lady right here was just saying, I'm working really hard on it. She went to privately to me. Some lady, Allison, can I send it to your email? I'm like, no, send it to Dropbox. What does that mean? Like, oh no. So there could be some confusion on where to send these recordings. But anyway, what do you think about, I think the piece that you just showed us, we should have a Byzantine piece, and that would be a great Byzantine piece to do. Keeping it in Christmas. Yeah. I know you just did the recording, obviously, with your thing, but we could use that as their learning track, if you will. I mean, it could easily be done as a learning track, send it out and have people send it in. I think it'd be cool to do that.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you like it.
Especially having the women and the men, very slick.
Yeah, I did have at least one person send me an email when the original email went out and asked if we had that exapostolari in Byzantine notation. And I'm like, well, it's not going to do you much good in Byzantine notation because it's really choral.
The one that we send out, the 4-part, the Sakalarides.
Yeah.
How's that gonna help with 4-part music?
It's not. But to have something that is for the Byzantine. I don't think he was a voice part. I think he was probably just a chanter making a point that when I said we want everybody to participate.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I guess it could be written in Byzantine.
I guess it could, but I haven't analyzed it to actually see if it adheres to the formulaic rules, because then